The do's and don'ts after the 4 sessions will be held with Pascal Grotenhuis, Director Social Development of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Freek van der Meer, Dean of the Faculty of Geoinformation and Earth Observation of Twente University. Now to present to us all, but specifically to Freek van der Meer, Dean of ITC, and to Pascal Grotenhuis, Director of DSO, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we will ask, of course, the 2 of them, Freek and Pascal, for their reflection on the do's and don'ts. And at the same time, also invite you, or shortly after the reflections by Freek and Pascal, ask you as an audience whether you have any more observations, questions, or even a more do or don't to give to us all. Can I please invite the facilitator of the first session, which is Mervin Bakker, to start presenting the do's and don'ts of the first session, Insights on Impacts. Mervin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Marianne.
Hi.
I've been a good student because I've sent my do's and don'ts to the administrators here. So I do hope they can project them on screen as well now. I will address my observations to Freek and Pascal. Very nice to meet you both again. Last time we saw each other was in Maputo, Pascal, and in Jakarta, Freek. So the world has changed a bit since then. Now we see each other online. We had a very interesting session on impact, always a topic that leads to heated debates, also some conflicting ideas, and some very much in favor of a theory of change, or others saying that the theory of change is useful for understanding impact, but definitely not for measuring. But I think we succeeded in coming up with some do's and don'ts for you. And without the presentation being put up, I can just say them to you. Hopefully you can remember. For the first do is that we have to be very clear about the why, why we want to measure impact, and make sure that we let the why guide us in what to measure, and to distinguish also between the various clients of your monitoring and evaluation efforts, whether that's NUFIC or the ministry or the beneficiary. We thought it's very important. Of course, another do is to work together between the various modalities in a program, whether that's OKP or another one, and to make sure that you do that in a joint way, so not to go for standalone impact evaluation. And the third do is that we want to make sure that we use the M&E methods that match the complexity of the program and also match the complexity of the context you are working in. So we have to use complex aware methods, and there was also a call for flexibility in both during a project or a program, but also beforehand, and not to make the framework too tight. But then we go to the don'ts. The first don't is, and sorry for the don'ts and the do's are in full sentences and not in keywords, but it was difficult to combine all in a short time. But don't focus on observable outcomes alone, and not too many. Here it says no numbers, but I would say not two numbers, but especially not too many numbers, but especially generate insights in behavioral change, and make sure that you do not forget to mention and to measure the early signs of progress by looking too far ahead or looking at a too high level. And people said, and I like that phrase a lot, that understanding the journey is key. The second don't is that we should not try to prove the final results, because they're already well known. We try to assess the intermediary outcomes again, so the attitudes and skills. And the third and last don't is that we should not pretend to measure impact if you can't make a credible and useful contribution claim, unless for PR purposes. It is obviously something that we see a lot in our line of work. Be modest and realistic, and do not let the funding agency be the main driver or client of your M&E efforts. It should really be you as a project owner, together with the beneficiaries, be an intrinsic motivation to measure your progress. So those were the 3 do's and the 3 don'ts from session 1.
Yeah, thanks, Marvin. Very clear do's and don'ts, although stated in sentences, as you say. The first, if I may summarize in keywords, the first do's are the why should be, so the ultimate use of the impact assessment should be very clear. Should be a joint assessment, and the methods that are used should match the complexity and the situation. The don'ts mostly go for the story behind the numbers. Go for the story, the understanding, the attitudes, and the skills that have been changed by the activities matter more. And the results should be credible, usable, and modest and realistic. Pascal, can I give you a first floor to give it a go at this do's and don'ts?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, and I hope people can hear me. Also, thank you very much for organizing this event and inviting us. It's really inspiring to learn from you at this point of time what do's and don'ts are for future program. I just want to make a comment that you all are very aware of, but it kind of context my contributions. We of course have a caretaker government, so we're waiting, as I expect you all are, for the new government. So it's actually kind of difficult to reflect too far ahead on future programming. So that's, for me, actually, this is a real luxury to hear what you're saying or what your ideas are. But I cannot reflect on all the processes and the ideas that we have, because we're waiting for a new minister to give his or her opinion and policy outlook. So that's a little bit of a context what I'm working in. On the impact, I was participating in a different group. So this is really valuable, and I think what for me the main important thing is the joint assessment. For me, it would be, I agree with the storytelling. I do need numbers, and I do want numbers, because it's the OKP program is ODA, so we need the numbers to go back to Parliament to report about the results. But I agree with what you said, Marvin, that the storytelling is more impactful. So I would go for both the numbers and the stories and the journey in between. On the joint assessment, I think measuring impact is key to do together with the universities and the knowledge institutions and TVET and the partners in the South. What I really would hope for is that you also strengthen the capacity. But I think also in the whole storytelling, actually, and in the impact, it's really important to have the joint assessment from the Dutch institutions, but also the Southern partners. So for me, that's the one that I highlighted in my notes. So thank you very much for that.
Sorry, I was muted. Thanks a lot, Pascal. Freek, what is your reflection on the do's and don'ts from this group on impact?
Yeah, thanks for the invitation, and thanks for the opportunity to say something. I echo what this group has said about do's and don'ts. I think they're very valuable, and I think they're very important. I think in terms of why, it's also important to distinguish between impact and change, and to actually also foster long-term change and long-term impact, so that you really fuel a transition, and it's not a project that has an impact, and when the project stops, the impact is gone. So I think this sustainability aspect is a very important one. And if I make an analog to research, I'm really wondering whether everything we do, we can capture in terms of predicted impact and sort of predicted change. I think a lot of things we're doing in research, particularly also in blue sky research, has had impact which we didn't predict upfront. So I think in this kind of models, there should be some creativity also for things that you cannot predict. And I think you call it complex or unpredictable results. But I think these complex and unpredictable results are a fact of life. And somehow they should be part of the whole story. And I personally don't very much like key performance indicators. In making an analog to research, we used to be measured by age index, and I think that's not very productive. I think narrative approaches and storytelling, to me, is much more long-lasting impact than key performance indicators, although I understand that from a ministry perspective, you need also to show the numbers.
Thank you, Freek. Thank you very much. I saw a message in the chat that says, are there already capacity development programs to build capacity in meaningful M&E programs? Do I reflect that in a right way, or do you want to, the one who wrote this, do you want to contribute to this?
No, you reflected perfectly.
Okay. So is there somebody in the audience that can please give an answer on this? Do we already have these programs that that build M&E, what is it, methodologies for this? No answer?
I can try to help you, Ruben. There are international networks and even training programs on M&E in many parts of the world, basically funded by the World Bank and by DFID, the English program. There is an Impact Academy in South Africa, for instance, for all African scholars. And almost all countries nowadays have an association of evaluation studies. So there is a lot of capacity in the countries.
Thanks, Ruud. Thanks for that. I see a hand raised by Jolie. And I just happened to see that because you are in my screen, Jolie. Please add.
Thank you very much. I didn't see how I otherwise could raise a digital hand.
Raise your hand. Yeah.
Thank you very much for picking it up. No, I was thinking about the question and then looking at the Orange Knowledge project. And I think the answer should be, but of course we from NAFIC are more at a distance, but the fact that we focused on impact from the start and before the start of the projects already in the application, we expect the implementers, both implementers, to integrate this in the projects. So if they know that they have to report 3 years or 5 years after the end of the project on how graduates from training institutions, if they are working, if they are doing a relevant contribution to the country they're working in, then they have to strengthen during the project implementation tracer systems. And so it is implicit that during the implementation of the projects, there should be attention to strengthening M&E capacity of the partners in the South.
Thank you so much. I also see some contributions in the chat, and maybe that's a good reminder. If you want to contribute something, please also put it in the chat. We will use the next to the recorded sessions, we will also use the chat for our reporting. So if that is even enriched with your observations, that would help. What I see in the chat is the flexibility to have adaptation on the basis of the M&E that takes place during the program, adaptation of the intervention logic, and the flexibility to have the learning in between. So the flexibility is in fact the learning and hopefully steering towards a higher impact at the end of the project. If that is, do I see more hands? I think I saw the hand of William. Is that correct, William?
Yes, I just want to make a point that actually, if you do take your capacity building project seriously, there's always a paragraph on monitoring and evaluation. And the biggest difficulty is matching the metrics of the NUFIC program with the relevant metrics on the ground. Especially, for example, we have a capacity building project in Yemen, which is on building professionals to tackle the difficulties of working with a military government and civil society. Their metrics are very different context than those in the M&E program of NUFIC. And well, it's a fact of life, and we have to make the challenges. But it's the partnerships we have means we have to translate those metrics into the Dutch reality, and it's also a struggle. Let's say, just to make a point.
Thanks a lot, William, for that contribution. I would like
Marianne?
to... Yeah.
So also in the chat that Henk van de Heuvel wants to say something about narratives and storytelling. Maybe no hand was put up, but...
Yeah, I didn't see that. Henk, do you want to take the floor? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Riti. Yeah, I also find storytelling very that can be very powerful and say more than thick evaluation reports on I don't know what. But let's also be realistic that what someone is saying counts for today and this moment, and may be different tomorrow. And secondly, it depends a lot who is saying what. So we all have our interests. NUFIC has its interests. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has its interests. The implementers, the service providers, the universities of technology, the training institutes, we all have our interests, our institutional interests. And of course, we want to make things look and sometimes a bit better than in reality. Rather than fooling ourselves and each other, I think we should acknowledge that we do have different interests. And couldn't we make a more systematic approach in asking about impact assessment, the various stakeholders, both in the Global South, but also from the side of the service providers and the funders, to really choose quotes from different stakeholders so that we get a more complete picture than only the rosy impressions, this project was so successful, wonderful, etc., etc. Because also when there are negative narratives, disappointing experiences, that can also be a lesson for all of us to take home with. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Henk. I would like to continue to the breakout group 2. Can I ask Diane to come forward with her points of the group?
So I've made 2 slides so to make it more visible. We were the group on online education. So I would like to thank all my the participants and our co-facilitators for a very fruitful and interesting, very short 1 hour. It's always that we never have enough for these things, but I think we have some good results. So the first that we would like to present is future online education capacity development should be flexible in the type of funding available to cater for online and blended learning, local needs and context. So it was very apparent that that we need to contextualize and really look at the local needs of the people that we are working with. We also feel that in investment in good digital online products that are reusable, so that we can use that for more than one time, but also in different kind of learning trajectories, and scalable, so that we can also expand with these online products. And then the last one is call to action: encourage funding for blended learning, short and long-term long learning trajectories by safeguarding continuity, same countries, same partners and teams, building on existing and good relationship for lifelong learning, institutional capacity development for blended learning. Because some of us that are working with partners in the South, they first need a really good startup to build that trust and yeah, mutual understanding for these learning trajectories. And then so we need really a little bit more time, and we would move like to blended learning and lifelong learning, so that we can really build upon on the long-term capacity development partnerships. Then the don'ts: travel for international education capacity building can be limited, also depending on the context and in which phase of the program, of the project you are, but it's still necessary and should be combined with online and blended learning. We should not assume that the playing field are equal and that students or participants have the same IT accessibility, language capacity, and computer literacy. We see among all the participants, there is a huge difference which what countries and which kind of participants you are working. So it's very important that we don't assume that. There is no one blueprint that fits all. And do not limit to only online or face-to-face funding and programs, but instead be flexible in offering opportunities to blended online and offline components. So these are the 6 points that we would like to present here. Of course, we have a much longer list. So that's for us.
Thanks a lot, Diane. So let me please again also summarize very shortly. So you have a call for flexibility in the capacity development programming. There is a call for investment in online programs that can be scalable. And there is a call for blended learning and specifically oriented to lifelong learning, what I hear. In your don'ts, you say don't travel per se for capacity development, but it sometimes can be necessary. Don't assume that the level playing field is there already in terms of IT accessibility, etc., etc. And you say don't limit your funding to only one form of the capacity development modalities, either online, either face-to-face, because we don't think that is the future. Can I please give the first floor to react to Freek?
May I ask? May I at some point we don't say do not travel, but we say travel within the context. So so it's not travel, but it's necessary, but it should be contextualized.
Okay, thank you for that detailing and nuancing. Can I give the floor to Freek for a first reaction, Freek?
Yes, thank you very much. And again, I almost completely echo what you say in terms of the do's and don'ts. One point that I want to make is a more generic point. We hear lifelong learning in a lot of different contexts. Also, our Ministry of Education, Culture and Research is talking about lifelong learning as a prime activity also for universities. I would argue that we as a community here, focusing on capacity development in the majority world, are a group that has probably 50 or more years of experience with lifelong learning. So I think we should be stronger voicing that experience also in the context of the lifelong learning and the human capital discussion that's going on nationally. I think we have a lot to offer that other stakeholders can learn from. So that's a general remark. a more specific remark related to this particular group. I think there are advantages of doing things online. And I don't think normally we would have 70 people maybe attending this seminar if we would have it face-to-face somewhere in Utrecht. But you attract more people so you can reach more people. But there is also the other side of the point that you have difficulties maintaining a community feeling and keeping things going if you only do things online. So I think travel still is, for me, a very important component. If I talk to students from our organization, and when they go back to their country, they always said being in the Netherlands for a certain amount of time has been a life-changing experience. And I think vice versa for people that have lived in different countries and in different environments, being really embedded in those environments really changes your perspective. So I think I fully agree that we should look at the sensible combination of things online and also face-to-face and on-site.
Thanks a lot, Frank, for your reflections. Pascal, I give the floor to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the COVID pandemic has shown that online education offers opportunities for students, but also for professionals like ourselves to gather. But what I also see is that it actually increases already existing inequalities. So what I find interesting is that there's no do's or no don'ts about gender equality, because we see that in a digital gap actually between men and women who have access to data, to online tools, to you name it, women are actually pushed out of many programs. So I actually would ask the question to the group if there was any discussion about that. I think also the online or the hybrid or the blended online works or the online classroom, I mean, it's a really good way to jointly, together with the local partners again, with the partners from the South, to organize such a classroom and to localize the knowledge. What I also wrote down is you talk about, and I think many of you spoke about the lifelong learning, or it takes a long time to build a friendship. I think, as Dr. Baak called it in our group, but also to have the relationships. We agree with that, and also with a future OKP program where we're thinking of extending the period. But it's also not that the OKP program was the first program. I mean, we had NFP, we had Niche, you have other programs as well. So it's not like we don't have a network and we don't have the relationship. So I also would like to actually ask a few of the questions back. It has really good opportunities. And I think that mainly goes for universities, but for TVET, for applied sciences, you need face-to-face learning experiences. So I actually also in the don'ts don't want to assume that digitalization is only profitable, because I think we're looking from it maybe from a little bit of a small window.
Yeah, can I give these questions back to the group? Diane, can you answer? Because I'm sure, and I also understood that when observing the group, that you have been dwelling on these questions.
Yes, we have a long list of do's and don'ts, and we were only allowed to select 3. So that's also a little bit limiting. The first issue that you asked is about the gender issues. We did not specifically talk about the gender issues, and I think I see that Mariette from our group wants to contribute to that. Mariette.
Well, actually, there were some nice examples that were given in the group. That, for example, a participant 8 months pregnant in the hospital, she could only lie, but because it was online, she was able to participate. So actually we discussed this gender element. And also for my personal experience with some TVETs, for example, in Tunisia, it did allow that women lecturers to participate in training. Normally, they would have not been able to travel and come to face-to-face. So, well, we really see inclusiveness and gender component if you go for a blended. I think we should really avoid only talking about online, but still looking for the combination of on-site and off-site. So yes, on the one hand, it might still be challenging, but it has really advantages to include women more specifically.
Yeah, thank you so much. Diane, anything more to contribute?
Yeah, I think that we as a group really feel that we should move not only to one of the options, but that we should actually, as Mariette already said, we really look at blended learning and then short and long trajectories, and also look at institutional capacity development. And we do realize that we have a lot of institutional capacity development that has already happened before. But I think we can actually, we should have more options to really look what is the best fit for the condition that we are working in. And then it's local needs and context is also looking at what are the local needs, but the context also, how is the internet connectivity? Do they have infrastructure, ITC infrastructure? Do they have computers and mobile phones? So that these are the issues that we have to, it's just every time we do a new training, it's designing, as we like it, designing based upon pre-investigated context and local needs. I think, and we would like to have the flexibility to do so for these kind of capacity development and education. And it differs a little bit if you do education for university or professional education. So we would like to have that flexibility.
Yeah, thank you. So the conclusion is there's a lot of issues that are context specific. There is a lot of things that are still in development, of course, thinking about the IT accessibility, etc., etc. And on the one hand, online learning encourages inclusivity, but on the other hand, it also might exclude some people. Yeah. Thank you very much, Group 2. I would like to go to Group 3 on the research and education interactions. Henk, can I give you the floor to present your do's and don'ts?
Thanks very much, Marianne.
From your group, of course.
Yeah, should I share?
Please.
Screen, but
oh, sorry.
The other one has
Marianne, can you remove?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. I hope I picked the right one. Yeah, here we are. I tried to make it fit in one slide. It should be coming up very soon now. Okay. So the font size is a bit small. I think as an opening statement to which we all agreed is that, as a matter of fact, in our opinion, interaction between research and education is a sine qua non. Now, the one cannot do without the other. And therefore, we are very much in favor of having more interaction. But there is a limited coordination, coherence, and synergy between the different funding programs that either support capacity building in education or research collaboration with the Global South. So that's our first recommendation, that there is more coordination and coherence between the different funding programs. And why do we propose this? As a matter of fact, we believe that more synergy and more coordination and collaboration between the different programs and projects that are derived from it, the overall impact will be much larger in the sense that the local knowledge infrastructures will be strengthened in the Global South. And that is not only in the interest of societies in the Global South, it's also in our own interest because nowadays we're all working on global issues and we need to collaborate more in order to address these global issues. And this may seem obvious, that more coordination and coherence is needed. And some of the more experienced participants in our group were saying, this has been under debate for such a long time to have more coordination and coherence. But apparently it continues to be an important point of attention. And in addition to that, perhaps we are now talking to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and to NAFIC and to NWO as one of the well, not one, the main research funding organization in the Netherlands. But maybe we also have to involve and invite other actors on the Dutch side, like the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science, and maybe also other funders of research and education in neighboring countries, at least within Europe. Second recommendation was about the duration of projects. And we do understand the dynamics of the government and the ministries in planning programs for a certain period and projects accordingly. So most of the projects take 2, 3 or 4 years. But for meaningful collaboration in research and education, you need longer time frames to strengthen and reinforce the partnerships. And sometimes the duration of research projects do not always sync with duration of projects in capacity building, even if it's in the same sector, at the same country, in the same region. Thirdly, of course, we were discussing among ourselves, and we believe strongly that there is a need for more interaction between research and education. But most of all, the principle of demand-drivenness should be respected. The need for interaction should also be recognized and perhaps put on the agenda in the first place by the partners in the Global South. And this is something that we should work on collaboratively. Then the don'ts. Of course, we can always play around with the do's and the don'ts. We can frame don'ts as do's and the other way around. But we had a large consensus that we should really stop creating silos between projects. So in many cases, we are hopping from one project to the other project, and we should oppose to the projectification of science and capacity building. So if you are critical, this is also another way of formulating that we need more coordination, coherence, and synergy. Then a point was raised that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and maybe also other funding organizations sometimes have the tendency to publish calls for programs more or less simultaneously. And this fact could make mutual coordination and coherence and synergy a little bit more difficult. So also in time-wise, it would be a good idea to look at that, also the timing of publishing calls. And the third don't is, it's again the principle of demand-drivenness, but then formulated in another way, that we strongly believe in interaction between research and education. But there is also a risk to push agendas. This is in a nutshell a reflection of our discussion. If the chair allows, I would like to call upon fellow participants. Maybe I have overlooked anything important that should be mentioned here as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please group any addition to what Henk has said? If not, then I make a short summary of what you said, Henk, and you already said, well, we're playing around with the do's and don'ts, or we can play around. At the same time, I see some mirroring in your do's and don'ts, of course. First of all, you say there's a very clear need to have an interaction, to have a clear interaction between research and education. You also call for longer time frames for projects and joint collaboration in research and education. Your third do definitely reflects with your third don't. Push the agenda not only from the northern part, but in close collaboration with the south. And there's a strong call to not have the silos, and I think that is a strong one to have that. So thanks a lot for the contribution of this group. I would like to give a first floor for reaction to Freek, as you are also a member and participating in the research world. So maybe good to invite you as a first for a first reflection. Freek?
Thank you very much. I think we're all actually participating in one way or the other in the research world, because we're all
absolutely
discovering new things every day. So in that sense, I don't think I'm exclusively the one in the research world, but I do understand what you mean. I think this interaction research and education is really a no-brainer. It has to be integrated, and definitely if you look at it from a capacity development perspective in the majority world, you cannot go about only having one or the other. So in that sense, it's a no-brainer. Also, if you look at the developments in, at least in the Netherlands and worldwide, in the Netherlands, we have the recognition reward discussion where VSNU, NFU, KNW, NWO, ZonMW, sorry for the Dutch, joint forces to really force to make this integration of research and education and equal rewarding of research and education possible. And I echo what you say, there can be things improved in terms of coordination, in terms of synergy. And I think in that sense, we can look at our ministry, but we can also look at ourselves as a community, because also between ourselves, I think there is a lot of coherence and synergy that can still be improved. If you think about education and research, the connection between WO, HBO, MBO can still be strengthened. And I think it can still give a much stronger proposition for the Netherlands abroad if we do this more in jointly. And an aspect that you have not touched upon, which I think is an interesting movement, is open education, open science, which again is from the Netherlands perspective probably a no-brainer, because our activities are funded by taxpayers, so they have the right to get the information. But if you think about that in a context of capacity development, again, it's a slightly different discussion. It's going to be more that then we have to really make sure that we don't get asymmetric benefits from open science, if I may call it like that. So it's an interesting discussion to see how that will evolve towards capacity development programs.
Thanks a lot, Freek. Pascal, can I give you the floor to react?
Yeah, well, I'm very glad actually that that Freek already talked about coordination and coherence within the sector as well. I think Dirk-Jan Koch mentioned it, that we're actually, as Dutch, we're not that good in having coalitions and collaborations and jointly programming and working together. So I'm actually, I'm glad that you just mentioned it. I think the longer term, I think we'll all agree about that. And we will take that really into our heart and see for the future of the new program to see how we can accommodate that. Demand drivenness, yes, that's really important. That's what that's what ODA money is meant for. So I'm actually to be constructively critical, but I'm a little bit disappointed that we don't have universities except for Dr. Ba and maybe a few others. But this is very much Dutch driven. And for us, it's really important that universities from the Global South are present. So it's also, we have to be critical to each other. I think you have some work to do on that as well. And it would be great if we could have a similar meeting like this, but then with the partners from the South. Because what do they want from a new program? And for me, it's also interesting, do all the programs have to be centrally administered? Or can they be linked to universities there or to our embassies there? Or can we collaborate more on that? So I think we are in agreement that it shouldn't be the global north pursuing it. It should be demand driven. And I think we actually can do some more work on that. And I would love to talk a little bit more, but offline probably, or not in this one, that we should avoid launching multiple programs. I am not aware that we do that. So maybe it's a blind spot with me. But on research and education, we try not to do that. So I would love to hear maybe a more concrete example of that, because for me that's completely new. And if we do that we should change it. But for me, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, maybe indeed, as you say, Pascal, it would be good to have another discussion on that. It goes a bit too far to do that now, and also because of the time, I think. Thanks for your contributions, and that you say, well, a longer time duration is definitely considered. I think we can all be very glad with that. And I think also your point of the lack of Southern institutes in this meeting is very well taken, and we also take that to our heart. And I will discuss with the PI network whether we are into organizing something else with our Southern partners, which of course all of us have as implementing organizations. So thanks. I would like to see if there's anything in the chat or people raising their hands wanting to contribute something to this discussion. I see a hand of David van Kampen, please.
Oh, I would like to try to combine the last do's and don'ts with the comments that were made by Pascal, because we need to look over our own shadows and our own organizations and look at the ecosystem that you have in those countries. I think Andrea Rotrell already gave some example in Bangladesh to really get from the ground from universities that are already combining themselves and getting together on what their needs are, what they want to address, and which issues they have. But also networks like Reform on agricultural education. So what are they into? There are these networks, and there are, well, I won't call them NOFIX, but in even Pan-African networks that have can express their interest. African Union that can express their interest. So what do they need, and also use that network? So not only on an individual level. I think Pascal, to be frank, it might be a bit difficult to set up a program where you're going to fund 50 universities in 20 countries in Africa. But there are these networks that we can tap into. And having that more a collaborative approach, I think that will be of real added value.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I see. I also see some support for your comment on including and involving the Southern Institutes, Pascal. So that's very much taken up. No more comments. I think on this group, I would like to go to the working group 4, the breakout group 4. And I would like to give the floor to William to present the pointers, the do's and don'ts of working group number 4.
Yes, thank you, Marianne. We made a short list of the do's and one don't, as it was a very lively discussion within our group with about 40 participants. And well, as you see, the future of international cooperation, it's a very broad topic, and we try to use 2 videos from TU Delft and from Dr. Ba from Mali, a guest from the Knowledge Institute for Tropics, to focus on the subject of how to promote equal partnerships and mutual learning in the future through our capacity building programs. And as you can see from the slide, we take it up from where Henk left off with don't number 3. We try to promote the agenda through the eyes of the South. So one of the things we should do is called shift of power. That's this ongoing discussion where we try to promote the interest from the South from their point of view. That is a big discussion on how to do that. Actually, it's not need the why, but the how and what to do. And some of the takeaways, which I try to summarize, and there's just a small part of the discussion, is about an idea shared by Dr. Ba from Mali, is about friendship as a shared value. And that's a value which builds on trust of mutual relationships about giving and taking. It's not about the North having a program dictating what to do in the South. It's more like standing together, building long-term relationships from previous projects, previous interactions, and building give and take partnership, which means it's a level playing field in a bigger sense. It's about partnerships over time through different projects and not doing things again and again and again like we used to do, but doing something in a different way which adds value. And what adds value are the local knowledge networks, which are very essential. Dr. Ba called it a participatory democracy. It means that you are open to new narratives, new stories, new relevant indicators of what is needed. It's not always, if I would paraphrase that, limited to the priorities which is given to us through our own national policies, but it's reframed in the local needs, and that should be built around not only our consortia, but also the local consortia level. I mean, our partners in the South have their own knowledge networks, which can contribute equally to the goals which we have as the Netherlands. And one last do, I touched very lightly as a new part of the discussion is role of mobilities, of exchanges, physical digital exchanges in capacity building. Looking at the last 10, 15 years of capacity building, we have been focusing on projects as tools, but the physical mobility and now the digital mobility in COVID times are opening new possibilities to work together and to work equally. And this is also a challenge to us and to them to have a longer term programming as things take time and the impact of our projects are not limited more to 1 or 2 years within a project time. It's more extended as things take more time to come about. Impact is on short term not really visible. It's going to be a more long-term visibility of our impact. So that needs a lot of creativity from us. And one last don't, which is to spark any discussion, is that PhDs have been always a part of our programming and is still a part of programming. But one of the suggestions given is that we should also invest in local PhDs and I try to see that as to invest in a local knowledge infrastructure between education and research. So that we have PhDs, that the people come to the Netherlands is good, but we have to build the same structures in the south. So that is a short summary, and I know that I'm doing just a reflection, part of the discussion, and I guess one of the things we should also do after this is repeat it again, because there have been so many points and to our participants. I saved the chat, so I will share that also in the reports.
Thanks
That's it for now.
Yeah, thanks a lot, William, for having summarized these points. You had indeed a big group to discuss with. If I may shortly summarize, Shift the Power is of course the bridge between session 3 and 4, and I think very much rings a bell with all of us. Trust and friendship. I was in your session shortly, like in all sessions, but in your session, right at the moment that this was discussed, as a groundwork for building partnerships, which is so essential, and also building knowledge networks, including local knowledge networks. Stimulating the education mobility, very important point, I think. And I very much also would like to stress your 3 pointers under the do's, the longer term focus of a program, the flexibility and the room for innovation and creativity. Pascal, can I please give you the first floor to give your observations to these pointers?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And it was a pleasure actually to be part of this group. I think for me, the most important things are the longer term. And I think we agree on that. And we will see from within the ministry how we can accommodate that. But it also, I mean, it's not like we're starting from scratch, because we already had the friendship and the partnerships. And not just as implementing partners, but as real partners. So I really want to make that distinction. I think Shift the Power is really, really important. It's about a capacity building in the South. About the PhDs, we had quite a discussion if this is the most effective way of using the resources within the program, or maybe we should invest more in bachelors, or maybe we should invest more in short courses, because what is the ultimate impact for the society at large? So I think it will be a very interesting one to take back. I have a question. How can we make the most impact? Do we need to focus more if we look at countries, or do we need to, I think as one of the first speakers said, oh, just open it up and there's no limit. What is the most effective one? So that's something that I will take back as well. Yeah, and I think this fourth workshop is a really nice add-on to the last one about the Southern participation and leadership role. I think that's for me the main takeaway.
Marianne, your sound has been muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Then Freek doesn't hear me. Yeah?
No, but I can
ask you?
Yeah, please. I can continue where Pascal ended. I think if we want to really integrate universities, HBO, MBO, and everybody here, and now I'm speaking maybe for one part of that, then PhDs are one of the instruments of that sector. And I think diplomas are still very important. And in the end of the day, getting a PhD brings people at some stage to a more influential place. And I think that is an important part of what we want to achieve, get people into places where they can really make a change. So I think it is important, but I'm maybe now speaking a little bit for myself or for universities in general. I echo what is on the slides. I think long term is really important. And I think we we have a great network altogether, and we have alumni all over the world, and those are the best ambassadors for the kind of work we're doing. And I think those networks and alumni organizations we really should foster, because I think they're very important in also in our reputation worldwide. I think there are two things that I still want to say about this. And it may sound a bit bold, but I think we're wasting a lot of energy and time and money in writing proposals and writing reports. And I think we should find a way in which we can balance that a bit better. I think competition is very important, but success rating competition is also very important. And all the energy you spend in writing a report or writing some kind of progress report, you could also spend in another way to disseminate what you have been doing. And I would advocate that we balance that also a little bit in future programs. And then also that there is more opportunity for flexibility and creativity in these programs, and that there's more opportunity actually to adjust along the way. I'll stop here.
Yeah, thanks, Freek, for your bold statements on reporting, but a call for more time, energy, and but maybe also funding into actually achieving the impact. So that's the bridge to session number 1 again. I see the hand of Pascal. Can I?
Yeah, thank you very much. I was actually triggered by what you just said about the alumni network, and I'm sure, I mean, it's in letters to Parliament, and it's all very open in the public domain. But I think we all feel the need that we should make more out of the alumni networks, and we see that from the embassies. I know that the Ministry of Economic Affairs has a different interest than our ministry, of course, in different kind of countries. But I also would love to hear more from you, how you use the alumni in those countries. And I think one of the examples that came around in our group was that you use them also for the online or virtual classrooms as educators. But I would love to see if there's an idea of you how to use that network more.
Thank you, Pascal. A very good question, and I'm sure that all the implementing organizations that are represented here have their examples of how they make use. It sounds a bit strange, but to say it in that way, of the their alumni in their countries. So how you involve alumni in your work, in your projects. Can I give somebody the floor to explain? Juliette,
yes, thank you, Marianne. Speaking on behalf of the TU Delft and some of the institutional capacity building we do, we use a lot of our alumni. We have this past year, but we already did it before, as co-trainers. But especially in this COVID year, it's been really nice to have people on the ground who we have a really good relationship with to facilitate these trainings in a hybrid form. And we also always keep in contact with the alumni, and they sometimes end up working, for example, at engineering firms. And we actually, when writing proposals, involve them as a partner in our proposals. So they also do consulting work together with us, and we really try to keep them connected in that way as well.
And do you align with other universities as well? So do you have is there like a Mozambique network that you and maybe the agricultural university that you try to push for a joint approach, or is it every university has their own alumni and tries to involve as best as they can?
Well, we see a lot of, for example, the alumni who studied at TU Delft, that they still have a bond which actually spans over multiple countries. So they stay in contact over Facebook or online alumni events, or even physical alumni events. So that's not limited to the university they're at now. But within our projects, we always work with multiple universities, and we try to organize events where they're all included. So that's also how they meet each other.
Thank you. I think I saw the hand of Riti. Is that right, Riti Herman-Mosset?
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. Just not on a structural basis, but what we do is find participants who want to be engaged more, involved more, and outstanding participants to, in subsequent years, engage them in our courses so they become co-facilitators. So, for example, the online opportunities have increased that tremendously. So my Colombian participant next year will be a co-facilitator, hopefully, and she's already taking part in other projects also on a distance. So that's the great opportunity part. However, and we have also, we think that the most interesting project that spark of maybe more impact also is when we work with those change makers who then take knowledge, skills, etc. further and be able to also advocate in their contexts, in their organizations and then we support them throughout a longer time. But like working through broader networks in the sense of communities and work with them as communities of professionals or practice or how you want to call them, that requires also a different policy or idea of how you want to work with the system, so to speak. So I think there's an underlying principle of partly individual support, individual capacity development. And when we think also in terms of, from our work perspective, we're often thinking in terms of food systems perspective or including multiple actors in the system, that also relates to systems thinking for learning. So there's also something about the individual in their organization, within their context, and doing systemic learning, which means that we remain related. So there's the relatedness, when I think the word friendship was there, at the same time that relates to a sense of knowledge and knowing that we have an interaction and creating the knowledge together. So that concept needs to be also taken into account when we design. And that hasn't been part also, I think, not very strongly embedded in our way we have set up, also not in the way it's been funded, and also now has opened new ideas through the shift with more online and blended work. So I think there's some more thinking to do on that as well.
Thank you, Riti. I see the hand of Maaike. Maaike, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Marianne. Just also to add on to the points made on the alumni, I very much would like to actually claim or make the bold statement that actually alumni are really the human capital ambassadors for our country. When I was working, for example, in our embassy in Addis Ababa, and I was tasked with the bilateral relationships with the Ethiopian government, it really opened doors, meeting so many civil servants, Ethiopian civil servants that had studied at Wageningen, for many of them, because this is a result of our investment of decades in these human capital. So it's really a very, also a sine non qua for me, that it has a far more beyond the research and education sectors. Alumni and investment in alumni networks is really, also a no-brainer in that sense for our own policies and trade and aid agenda.
Thank you, Maaike, for that contribution. Anja, Machteld has raised their hand, I think. Oh, Anja
also raised their hand.
Anja has raised their hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, hi. So on behalf of RNW Media, I can also, and RNTC, our Worldwide Media Training Center, I can also share some stories how we are collaborating with alumni. We are collaborating local alumni for media production, and we are localizing the knowledge. So basically, just recently we have created explainer videos, or alumni have created explainer videos, and we are using these videos to blend them into short webinars in masterclass formats, online masterclasses. And of course, we intend to also recycle and reuse these videos or as any other e-learning products. And we also collaborate with alumni and see them basically as our, let's say, knowledge multipliers and co-creators of training. So since localization of knowledge always has been a challenge, I would say, They, in training of trainers, we are equipping them with the skills to localize the knowledge, to co-create their own curricula, and then to disseminate and give trainings to their own community. And they are basically, indeed, what I just heard, ambassadors for us, because they are so excited.
Thank you very much, Anja. For the sake of time, and I see that both Mervyn and Marleen, who had their hands raised but have lowered them, is that okay with you to stop the discussion here? And then I would like to give a final word to both Freek and Pascal to share with us their takeaway of today. They have both been in a breakout session. They have also given their reflection to all the breakout sessions that were shared here in this plenary. So please, Freek, could you please be so kind to share with us your takeaways from this morning?
Yeah, I can be very short, I think, on that, because if I would single out one or two, it wouldn't justify all the others. I think everything that's been said here is really very valuable, and I think it all adds to the program that we want. And I think what we should recognize is that we are a strong field, a very diverse field, and I think we are a strong, committed field. And I really look forward to a new Orange Knowledge program, and maybe an integrated program where all the instruments really come together and we can jointly work together with our partners in alumni in the majority world to make the world a little bit better in 10 years from now, and a little bit more equal in 10 years from now.
Thanks a lot. That's a very broad, but also very beautiful statement. Thanks a lot, Freek. Pascal, can I give you the floor?
Yeah, thank you very much. It was really a pleasure to be part of this webinar today. And I agree that this program, but also other programs and cooperation needs to lead to a better and more just world. What I take away is that we can learn from the online and the digital skills that we all developed. So I heard your call for more creativity, innovation, and flexibility. I also heard your call about blended ways of education and research. Also, the longer term is something that resonates really well, and I think for us it's really important that a true partnership with organizations from the South is really important. So I learned a lot, and I've taken away some of the key messages, and I really liked the very pragmatic way you organized it with do's and don'ts. So thank you very much, and you will definitely hear from us as soon as you can hear from us.
Thank you very much, Pascal. So now up to me as the chairperson to close this seminar, this online seminar, this webinar. I would like to thank you all very much for your contributions. I am very much aware that we have a very rich environment of participants and a wealth of experience in this type of business, if I may say so. So very glad that you have all put that to our availability and have put that in the discussions. Thanks a lot to all of you participants. A special word of thanks, of course, to the facilitators of the sessions, Mervyn, Diane, Henk, and William. A special thanks also to all our research persons, whom I'm very much apologizing, but I'm not going to mention them all because that was a wide range of people. I also would like to thank the organizing committee and specifically Marleen van der Kooi, Secretary of PI, for doing a lot of the groundwork for putting this together. Last but not least, thank very much also Pascal and Freek to have been reflecting on all the outcomes of the various sessions. And as the very much last ones, but definitely not least, I would like to thank Andrea and Jansje for facilitating, moderating these sessions in Zoom for us, which is very essential in this COVID time. So thanks for leading us through this session and without major hiccups. So very grateful for that. Thanks again to all of you for participating in this webinar. We will make a good report of this. As was said, this is recorded. We also take notice of the chat and compile it into a report. We will also continue our discussions as PI with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, also with NUFIC and other stakeholders where necessary. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Bye bye.